Hello, everybody. I'm Dan TCV, TheCriminalViolin, and today what we're going to be doing in this video is ranking all 15 of Styx's studio albums. Now, they all, for my criteria to be met, they all have to be original work and thus studio as well. That's literally it. So anything else that could be added to that does not count on this list, which is why there's only 15. So it doesn't count Big Bang Theory, which is a cover album, which I'm sure is fucking phenomenal. And then on top of that, I also won't be including basically any kind of compilation albums. It's just not included either, and also no live albums. That said, this is going to be my ranking list, and in case you didn't know, I am actually a diehard Styx fan, like, basically textbook definition of diehard. I rave about them, I fucking love the hell out of their music. I find almost all of them to be freaking phenomenal, all their songs, and kick-ass, and just a lot of fun, and things that I never get tired of. There's a few that I can get tired of pretty quickly, actually. And then there's, well, on this list, you're going to find out what album I actually can't stand anything on except for just one single song. So it's going to be interesting. And also, just a little background on my passion for Styx. I actually sincerely do not think I would be here today, alive, to do this, or do anything, to live, if it wasn't for my passionate love for Styx, and how it got me through the most difficult part of my life. And ironically, of all things, my dad is the one who got me into Styx because he's the one who showed me their music. And the irony of it is the fact that also the hardest part of my life was actually being stuck alone with him and having to deal with him and the way he was. Like, I'm not gonna go into detail about that, but yeah. And it's just kind of funny that the irony sits there like that. Like, he gave me the very thing, ironically, that would help me survive him, which is really fucking weird. But cool and trippy in a way. But anyway, all that said, that's a little bit of background on it. And so yeah, I'm a diehard Styx fan. To me, they're the best freaking band that ever existed, and probably, I sincerely believe, will ever exist. Nobody will ever come close to touching them in legend status. And then on top of that, Tommy Shaw is my main man. Like, all of them are super talented. All iterations, in fact, are super talented musicians. They're super talented songwriters and musicians, but Tommy's still my number one. He is my guy, and so for me, he is the band member that is the most inspiring and can inspire the most music out of my head. Like, literally, to me, he is the best freaking musician, singular musician that's ever existed and probably will ever exist. That said, I'm not idolizing any of this. I'm just saying is that to me, that they're way up on their own planet. All that said, I listened and gave my honest, it says that my biases, gave my honest ears to all the different albums, and I actually just finished today listening to all the different Styx albums, because it's only very recently that I've actually gotten to a place where now I don't have this weird quirk and hang up where I don't have the nerve or the will, the desire to listen to everything, even from a band I'm passionate about, because I'm scared I might dislike something. Like, sometime point recently, that all changed, and I'm very happy about that, and so now I can listen to just about anything and have no regrets about it at all. So my number one, because we're going to go in order from best to worst in my personal opinion, so the number one best album in my personal opinion, and I highly recommend everybody listens to it. I feel like it's intensely overrated, intensely underrated, and relatively untouched even by these supposed dedicated Styx fans. And it is Brave New World, which was released in 1999. I was 5 when it released. And Brave New World was released, yeah, in 1999, and it is the last album with Dennis DeYoung as a part of the band. Just a little bit of history. In 1983, the Killer Roy Was Here tour and the movie and all this rock opera stuff, so basically show tunes, basically Broadway shit. The rest of the members of the band were getting really fed up and sick of Dennis DeYoung's shit, that he was forcing the band to do all this shit for him, basically for what he thought the way that the band should go, which is his direction, his ideas only, follow him, he's the face of the band, he is Styx. Fuck everyone else. Fuck everything else. Fuck everything else you want to make. It's my shit now. JY and Chuck, who are basically you could say, administrators of the band, are the ones who hold the gavels, I guess you could say. Chucky's kind of like the person who's always been an observer, kind of in the background. He watches and he listens. You could say he's the compromise guy. And then James is the proper administrator. He's the guy who kind of leads the band, makes he really holds that final gavel. But he always defers kind of to Chuck to see how it's gonna go, especially considering Chuck and John are the two who even came up with the concept for the band in the first place, even before they were Styx. So in 1983, he was doing that, and basically Tommy gave them an ultimatum that you either find a fucking compromise, you kick him, whether it's kicking him out or whatever it is, or he's leaving, and you're gonna have to find another person. And because everybody else in the band was already having problems with Dennis and they were not happy with what he was doing, they initially JY and Chucky were actually going, they along with John said basically, you know what, it might be a good idea to actually kick Dennis out because he really is getting overbearing, and he's obviously the source of even our problems with everyone now. And so they were just about to kick him out in 1983, actually technically it was 1984, but they did not do it, unfortunately. And so they decided instead it would be better to take a hiatus. And because of the fact that that happened, they weren't kicking Dennis out. That's when Tommy left, and that's basically when they officially decided to take that hiatus that lasted from 1984 to 1989, when they started to record again, now with Glenn Burtnick, which then produced Edge of the Century. So that's a little backstory on that. You get that back to the point where in 1986, Tommy Shaw came back after doing a bunch of solo stuff, which was really successful, doing Shaw Blades and doing Super Band and Damn Yankees. He came to rejoin the band again so they could do the reunion tour, basically, and do the Return to Paradise theater tour. Which, by the way, in my personal opinion, that is the best fucking concert they probably have ever done. It is fucking amazing. The one that's actually on DVD and thus on YouTube, which I highly recommend you check out. It is fucking phenomenal, in my opinion. And then they took another short little break, and then 98, 99 is when they recorded Brave New World, and then they were about to go on tour for the Brave New World album, and then Dennis had his autoimmune disease kick in, which makes him hypersensitive to light. So because of that, he was highly allergic to it, so he could not go on stage. And so he said, hey, how about you guys wait for me? Don't go on tour until I'm ready. And then basically JY and Chuck were like, instead, I think we're going to do what we should have done back in 1984. And then they kicked him permanently. With never looking back, no regrets. They're killing it. They still have been ever since. Are they, still selling out entire stadiums? No, of course not. But they're fucking phenomenal, and they're still super fucking successful. I mean, case in point is The Mission. The Mission actually reached, I think, number 17 on the charts for a little bit. Now, that said, Brave New World, I highly recommend you go listen to it. It is fucking phenomenal. I love every single song on that album. Literally every single one. I don't just like them, I love them. I think they're fucking phenomenal. And I highly recommend you listen to it. My number 2 favorite album is Crystal Ball, which is the debut album of Tommy Shaw, of course. Its namesake, of course, is his song Crystal Ball, and it is his debut for being the guitarist. This is his debut for an album. This is his debut for singing his vocals. His debut for his writing. His debut for all of it. It's significant, and this album was released in 1976. My personal opinion, it is the second best album by far, because again, I like pretty much every single song on that album, if not every single song. I think it's a fucking great album. So I recommend listening to that, especially for some of the classics and the hits of what everybody thinks of when they think of Styx. They think of this era with Tommy Shaw, Chucky, Johnny, Dennis. So you want to listen to, I think personally the best album they ever produced together as a band, it's Crystal Ball, and I highly recommend you listen to it. It is freaking phenomenal. My number 3 favorite is, in fact, The Mission. I either like or love every single song on that album. And I say like or love because it depends on the song, if I like it or if I literally love it. It is an album that I really, really recommend you listen to. It's freaking awesome. It is a concept album, which means that it is basically trying a new style, trying a new sound, trying a new idea and concept. That's why it's called a concept album, right? They're trying a concept out. Basically unusual compared to what the fans would be used to them producing. That's what it means to be a concept album. But on top of that, it is as bands of their era do, and especially when they're now led by more Tommy and JY, they are in-depth stories. So every song is meant to be listened to, not out of order, not on shuffle. Don't turn it on shuffle. Listen to the entire album straight through from start to finish without shuffling any of the tracks around, because it's a story that goes the entire length of the album, and so it's a progression. So it is a great album, in my opinion. And I guess if you really fucking like space and you want to really have your head kind of in the clouds or stars, quite literally, you know, imagination wise, you would probably really be able to get into that album, especially if you really love the concept of space and space travel and colonizing Mars and stuff like that. You will love the mission, I can guarantee it. It's fucking amazing. Number 4 for me is The Grand Illusion. I think that it is a phenomenal album. I like pretty much everything on it. It is freaking kick-ass. It is great. Even though it is, of course, a Dennis DeYoung-led album, it is good. I love Dennis as a musician. I think he's a fantastic musician. He's really fucking talented, vocalist, amazing. But as a person, I strongly dislike him. Even though Grand Illusion is a Dennis-led album, I personally think it is great. You will not catch me bashing on it just because Dennis happens to be on it. Like, it's not gonna happen. Number 5 for me is 1979's Cornerstone. I think that this is, especially once you get into this area, this is where it was really difficult for me to place these. But Cornerstone, I personally like a lot. It has Lights on it. I believe this one actually has Babe on it. Yeah, and then some of the other songs, I think Why Me's on that one. And I actually like Why Me decently. I think it's pretty good. Babe is an acquired taste because it's a typical cliche love ballad. And again, that's what everybody says. How many times can you recycle Babe? Because even before Babe was put onto an album, it seems like he was recycling that same song quite consistently. I mean, it's kind of like, if you listen to Babe and you listen to Lady, they're actually pretty similar. Yes, Lady's a power ballad. You can hear Babe in it. Like, you can tell that this entire time he's been kind of rewriting that same tune into a lot of his songs. And so a lot of his ballads, if you listen to them, they all carry that through those years. They carry that same exact sound. It's not just a signature sound. It's literally the same basic chords, progressions, and thus music. It's pretty heavily recycled by him. That's why that reputation's there. But for a period of time, I actually literally would actively avoid Babe because I couldn't stand it. Because again, it's too slow and too ballady. It's too love song. It's cliche, and I don't appreciate that. I don't appreciate slow songs. But over the last couple of years, I found a new appreciation for it, and I actually do like it quite a bit. And especially, I know for a fact that I have to give credit to, again, Return to Paradise Theater Tour from 1996 for that, because the fact that that's probably my favorite version of that song is him in that. And I found the new thing because I've been getting, I guess, less and less anxiety ridden when I try to sing out loud. And I found myself really enjoying a hell of a lot, to a deep extent, singing Dennis songs. Like trying to mimic his voice and singing that. There's something, well, it's, to me, out of all the members of the band, he's by far the easiest to mimic the voice of, because it's like same with voice acting. It's the same thing. Like, you just figure out exactly what the structures are they're using, and like what percentage base it is, how much of an arc they have, and all this other stuff, where the air is getting pressed through, where the constriction is versus where the opening is, how he's using his mouth and tongue. Like, all of that tells you exactly how you can mimic that person's voice, including in singing, let alone voice acting. And so it's technically the same thing. But as a result, I found I love singing like Dennis. It just feels, it makes me have so much more of appreciation and love for his music than I originally ever would have, just as a simple mere listener and fan of the band. So as a result, seeing it, I find, gave me so much of a new, almost a borderline passion for his music. Like, I really love it. I still prefer Tommy's music, and I think I always will, and same with JY's and JC's, but it's still songs that I can really get behind now. So I have a new appreciation for Babe as well. So Cornerstone is my number 5. Number 6, Paradise Theater. Now, yeah, I could have easily slotted CYCLORAMA here, because I actually listened to CYCLORAMA's tracks, the ones I like of it, off of it personally, way more than I would listen to, I think, Paradise Theater itself. But then again, I do have Come Sail Away, Styx Anthology, which is a 2 CD greatest hits album. And so, actually, if I paid attention and looked, I probably would find a good handful of Paradise Theater tracks as well that I listen to very consistently, and even more so than the CYCLORAMA tracks. As much as I like the CYCLORAMA tracks, it's Paradise Theater. So, of course, you already know my number 7, because these two were exchanged quite a few times in this making this list before I finally really settled on Paradise Theater 6. And thus the next one is 2003's CYCLORAMA. CYCLORAMA is my number 7. Again, could have been 6, but it's one of my top albums out of the 15 because of the fact that I enjoy most of the music on the album. I wouldn't listen to all of the tracks on that consistently, you know, like especially the end track, I don't care for at all. Most of the tracks on it are great. I love that album so passionately because of the way they basically just straight up expose Dennis for the kind of person he actually is and the kind of cancer he is on a team or especially in a band. And how basically they're like, hey, congratulations, you killed the thing that you love, which is probably my favorite track off the entire album, because of the orchestral, interlude in it. Like, the orchestral interlude, like, it's rock orchestra, which is hilarious now that I think about it, because that's real rock opera at that point. Except there's no singing in it, it's just the interlude, the music, the instruments. But it's so good! Oh, I love it. It's fucking phenomenal. And of course they have not just Killing the Thing That You Love, which is probably my favorite track off the album, but you have Kiss Your Ass Goodbye, which is my second favorite track because of how much fucking fun it is. The rhythm, the tempo, the beat, the way it, oh, it's great. Yeah, there's just 2 more songs that they made that you can tell are direct shots at Dennis. And I love it because of how tactfully they actually did it while they're also still basically like, yeah, you can go fuck yourself. Way past your prime, you know. It's fucking awesome. Killing the Thing That You Love, like Lennon's Assassin. I mean, it's like, it really is made to make sure that he knows exactly who they're talking about, and it's made to hit deep on him too. Like, in other words, yeah, we don't have any regrets. Have fun though. Yeah, like being you. And so yeah, it's a fucking phenomenal album, I think. Obviously, not all the tracks on it, of course, are about Dennis. There's some, Yes I Can, I actually really like a lot. That's a Tommy Shaw track. It's acoustic. I think it's fucking great. Yeah, More Love for the Money is great. Yeah, there's just a good handful of tracks on that album that I think are fucking kick-ass. And not all of it, but the majority of the album would probably be considered punk rock, I would think. So you can tell that Glenn Burtnik had a hell of a lot of influence on it because he's a very punk rock guy. You know, mad respect to Big Glenn, especially considering I think it's hilarious because here's the funniest, most hilariously epic part and how it makes this album so much more kick-ass is the fact that the very songs that are taking direct shots at Dennis are actually penned and led by, so sung by, and performed by none other than Dennis DeYoung's fucking protege in Glenn Burtnik. Go fucking figure. And it's like, Glenn was his fucking protege, and yet he's even telling that smack about him. It's like fucking amazing because he's led that onslaught onto Dennis's reality of what he really is, and it's as a person, and it's fucking great. It makes it so much more amazing and kick-ass. It makes me respect that album endlessly more and love it endlessly more and have more passion for it because it's like, that is how you fucking do it. That is fucking amazing. And like, who would have fucking expected that? Like, it's fucking amazing. I love it. My number 8 is Styx 2, the second album, therefore, of course, they ever released as Styx in 1973, I believe it was released. It was either 73 or that was also still in 72. I can't remember. It is my number 8. And this is the point where, yes, there's certain things on this that I really like that I could talk about. But for the most part, I could just leave it as it is and say Styx 2. Because it's getting to a point where it's about half the songs I like or love, and then other half that I can live without. Like, it's okay. Like, I'm not going to avoid them by any means. If I hear them, I'll listen to them. And try to enjoy them as much as possible. But it's just not something I care for that much. So it's getting to that point on the list. With Styx 2, though, much like number 10 album on my list, JC he goes to show how much of a legend he should be in the Styx community. Like, he is phenomenal of a musician. He's fucking amazing. And adding in that classic psychedelia or psychedelic rock music to it is, he just kills it. He is fucking phenomenal. So definitely, if you want to hear proper great JY led Styx before Dennis ever found his identity as a musician, ever found his signature, because you can tell Styx 1 through Man of Miracles, which is their fourth one. Seriously, sincerely, truly, madly, deeply. That's a Savage Garden reference. Make sure you listen to these albums. Specifically, you'll immediately be able to figure it out, especially Styx 2 onward, the next two albums. You will hear that signature sound of JC as well as JY. Whether together or separate, they had a signature sound, and they were clearly the guys that gave Styx their original signature sound and style. And I think it's fucking kick-ass and great. It's fucking phenomenal and fantastic. And thus it's also very different from modern, or not modern Styx, but I guess you could say mid-era Styx, second edition Styx. The Styx that then added Tommy Shaw, and as soon as Tommy Shaw showed up for some random fucking reason, Dennis was like, oh, I have my identity now. I found my fucking signature. Let's repeat. It was that's a weird little factoid, by the way. Listen from Styx 1 through to even just Crystal Ball, but especially at least Equinox and thus subsequently Crystal Ball, because Equinox came out between Man of Miracles and Crystal Ball. Because you'll be able to hear, especially once you hit Crystal Ball, Dennis will have suddenly just been consistent. He suddenly, for the first time, is consistent in his music that he penned, and he sounds like what everybody knows Dennis to sound like, a fucking show tunes guy. It's really fucking weird. Like, it just, Tommy shows up and instantly, it's like it just made him discover exactly what he wanted in his penned music. Wild. I don't understand how the hell that happened. I know it was not intended by Tommy. It wasn't even probably a thought in his head. It just happened coincidentally or something. I don't know. Either that, or maybe Dennis's arrogance was already growing, and at that point he's like, competition? I know what to do. You know, it's like, I'm gonna assert my dominance over him. I've been here longer. In other words, like, he sensed him as like a threat to his reputation, I guess, or something. I don't know. There's any number of possibilities, but it's a fun thing that I feel I should mention, especially considering in Styx 2, we're talking about JC before Tommy Shaw. It's fucking phenomenal music. Definitely give it a listen. It is great. My number 9 on the list of best to worst Styx albums is actually EQUINOX. EQUINOX, again, released in 1975. It has one of the most surprising tracks, in my opinion, I think, that ever came from a Styx album, and that is Midnight Ride. I think Midnight Ride is great, but I think it's even better in one of their concerts that's actually on YouTube. It's like a 2.5 hour long concert. It's fucking long. Actually, no, I think it's like 2 hours and 48 minutes. It's a long concert, but they played Midnight Ride in it, and I thought, that does not sound like Styx. That does not sound like something they would play. It's hard. It's pretty, good upbeat tempo. It's pretty fun. I just thought, this is really weird. And the entire time, I'm like, this is weird. I was just like sitting here tripping out, losing my mind over like how weird it was to hear this from Styx. It just didn't sound like a Styx sound or a Styx album. But it was freaking amazing, in my opinion. And that's by far the best form you'll ever hear Midnight Ride in. That said, there's a few other songs on here that I personally really like, and of course there's a couple of traditional Styx hits that everybody thinks of that Styx to this day consistently plays. My number 10 is their third album ever released with The Serpent is Rising, and I think the titular track is kick-ass. I think it's fucking amazing, and you can absolutely hear, again, the signature of JY and JC together on this track. It is fucking phenomenal. It is absolutely kick-ass. You have to listen to it. I think it's such an underrated track. And there's a few others that are fairly underrated on Serpent's Rising as well. I think actually that's an undeservingly disliked album of the band. So I highly recommend you give it a listen because it is great. Number 11 on this list is Kilroy Was Here. which is actually the album released, of course, in 1983 with the subsequent movie that was called the same name. That was actually the direct result of the entire hiatus they took, and Dennis almost getting his ass kicked the first time around, which technically should have been kicked then, but hindsight 2020 as they always say. But I think it's a good album. I think there's a lot of good music on it. I understand that I didn't grow up with the whole constant radio airplay of Mr. Roboto that everybody else that's a little bit older did, that made them actually hate this album, or more specifically hate that song, because the fact that it was the biggest hit off that album and everybody loved it at the time, so it got overplayed incessantly on the radio, kind of like a lot of modern music does now. But I still think I personally like that song a lot, so I didn't have that problem, so that's probably a part of the reason why. In the end, I still think this is worth listening to at least once. I think it's actually honestly still a pretty good album overall, and I think it's pretty good. I mean, this could have slotted anywhere between, I'd say, anywhere between 8 and right where it is right now. So, like I said, especially once you get to 8, it's like really shifty which album goes up through 11. My next one is number 12 at their 4th album ever, still before Tommy days. The last album they have at JC, which is Man of Miracles. I think there's a couple of songs, especially one particular track near the end of it, that I personally really like. Again, it's a JC-led track. It's a JC Penn track. It's great. And I think, again, for that unique sound of JY and JC together, or just JC, you definitely should listen to it as well. And I think it is worth a listen. It is great. And JC also, therefore, had some music that actually really inspires my brain to start randomly playing and creating its own music live on the fly when I listen to it. It's great. So I highly recommend you listen to that. My number 13 is actually the last album I listened to before making this list, which actually I listened to just today, the day I'm recording this, go figure, which is Pieces of 8. I know. It's one of their biggest, best-selling albums and still ones that people rave about today. But in my opinion, it's just a forgettable album. I don't find it as bad. I don't find it as good. I just find it as something that's incredibly forgettable. Like, once I concluded it, it's literally like, huh. Yeah, I can't say I really have an opinion like that. I just don't really care about it. Like, that's, I mean, cool, I guess, but alright. It has Renegade on it, which is fucking amazing. And then it has a few other hits on it, including Pieces of 8 itself, titular track. But all in all, the album to me is very unimpressive, and it's just okay. It's all right, which is ironic as well, because of course the Grand Illusion, which is my number 4, is right there, always directly associated with Pieces of 8 album, because Grand Illusion, Pieces of 8. And so it's kind of funny because I have Grand Illusion at number 4, but I have Pieces of 8 at number 5. I love the Grand Illusion album. I really could live without the Pieces of 8. I think it's just, overall, like, it exists, and that's basically what I can say about it. Like, it's okay. It has some of my favorite songs on it, but it's still, or actually has like 2 of some of my favorite 6 songs on it, but that's it. The rest of the album's just really fucking forgettable. And especially the last track, Aku Aku, it just feels like it's entirely pointless why that's even there. Like, it's not, I'm not saying it's bad, but it just is boring. It's just something it also seems excessively long. It seems like it's more like 5-6 minutes in length, even though it's only 2.5. But it's just really, I feel like it just doesn't fit the album at all, or the music on it. It just feels completely and utterly pointless that they just randomly slatted it on there. I don't know if it's like Bicycle Race for Queen. It was just a filler track that they had to do in order to fulfill the obligation for it. But yeah, so that's why Pieces of 8 ends up in my 13, is because I really don't care about it at all. Like, it exists. Yeah, that's literally it. Like, I don't know what else to say. It's very forgettable. Number 14 for me is Styx. Again, there's not a track on this I actually dislike or hate. It's just really fucking forgettable to me. There is one track on it that is, of course, on the Greatest Hits album. That is the Come Sail Away Styx Anthology, that I think is really good and I really enjoy. I wouldn't listen to it more than, say, some of the other tracks from these other albums, but it's one I do listen to fairly frequently, and I think it's good. But all in all, just really forgettable. And it makes sense why I think it's forgettable, is because of the fact that there's everybody, including JC and JY, literally the entire band was still trying to find their identity and their signature sound. You could tell that they were kind of toying and playing around with different ideas and different sounds in it, and they just didn't really have a identity yet as a band. And that's completely understandable when it's your first ever album. And you're also now officially signed with a record label that's owned by somebody as massive as as it was either RCA or A&M at the time, which is wood nickel. So it makes total sense because that was the first time in any of the iterations of this band, including TW4, which is there were 4, and then before that, of course, there were trade winds, is what they called themselves. So technically, those are all iterations of Styx, if you really want to look at it that way. You can tell that they're still trying to find their thing, and that was the first time they actually got a proper record label to sign them so they could release CDs. And so as a result, they were hunting for that national attention. And of course, they didn't get it with that because of the fact that they don't have a signature sound or an identity. So it's just like, it kind of sounds like the mess that it is of a band that's just really trying to find itself and just starting out. And so I don't see a problem with that. It makes total sense. And there is one kick-ass track on it, but other than that, it's forgettable. Not bad, not good, just eh. Hey, and last but not least, the one that I think is the worst album, and I can actually say worst and say it means worst as the negative connotation that worst usually has, as in I actually legitimately dislike, maybe even borderline hate this album, which is Edge of the Century, released in 1990, recorded in 1989, and it was without Tommy. That has nothing to do with it, though. I actually listened to it thinking, this could be really good, especially considering it has Glenn Burtnik on it, and this is the one where Love is a Ritual came from, which I fucking love. It's one of my fucking favorite songs in existence. Like, it doesn't matter if it's a Styx song or any other kind of music from any other artist. It's one of my all-time favorite songs. I find Love is a Ritual is such a fun song. It's so hard-hitting. It's kick-ass. It's exactly the way I love my percussion and music. It's like it's an iron fist pounding a massive crater into the ground every freaking time the bass drums are hit. It is how you make truly hard rock kick-ass music, and that's exactly what Glenn Burtnik did with Love's the Ritual. It's a fucking amazing track, and if you have not heard that, you're a lunatic. You gotta listen to that. You gotta do yourself that service and listen to that, because right now you're doing yourself a major disservice. It is by far one of the most underrated probably tracks in just general music, so definitely listen to that. The rest of the album, in my opinion, is terrible. There is a couple of songs, I think there's 2 more, that I thought, okay, they're interesting. Like, I wouldn't say that I like them properly, like borderline like them, to just like, they're interesting, they're okay, good. I can sort of see what they're trying to get at, but eh. And then the rest of it is just, in my opinion, god-awful, terrible excuse for not necessarily music, but like just for Styx to even have produced. It's terrible. And even the production quality, of course, is not great, which makes sense because that was one of the only ones that Dennis, he kind of forced out that album, realistically, let's be honest, because he wanted to get back to it, and so they kind of forced this music out, and therefore, of course, it was terrible. And then at the same time, he was so busy trying to push it that he didn't even look for another producer. He just produced it himself, but he rush produced it, of course, so he could get it out as soon as possible. Terrible album, in my opinion. It's literally it's god-awful. It's terrible. In fact, I can't actually say, safe to say, I legitimately hate the album. Especially considering I couldn't even get all the way through the entire album. I could not muster the ability and the strength to push myself through the hell that was Edge of the Century. I could not get all the way through it. I got, I think, halfway through the penultimate track, and then I just said, fuck this, and I left it, because it's terrible. So, in my opinion, Edge of the Century is by far the worst Styx album ever released, and I think that there's no reason for you to listen to it. In my opinion, it's that fucking bad. Of course, that's in my experience, but it's just terrible. Especially considering if you listen to all the other albums and you listen to the typical hit Styx music and stuff like that, even some of the solos from Dennis and Tommy, it's and even now Lawrence going, it's terrible. It's absolutely terrible. And is the only album that I can safely say I legitimately hate. But then again, at the same time, you shouldn't let somebody else's opinion and subjective tastes in music define or set your boundaries for where you're going to draw the line on listening to music either. So actually, instead of actually encouraging you not to listen to it, I'm going to encourage you to listen to Edge of the Century, because you never know. You might actually find it kick-ass and you might fucking love the hell out of it. It might even end up your favorite Styx album. I don't fucking know. There's a long-time dedicated fan of 40 plus years that you can find on Facebook. You can find running Styx fan pages, JY fan pages. She has a YouTube account, which is Deborah78. Her name is Deborah Kearns. Because of all that, her presence, I really don't think it's gonna matter to her if I mention her name outright like that. But she's been around for a long time, and we got into a short little comment conversation over a couple of days on YouTube, which is actually on somebody else's comment about Styx and the music and what albums we think are better or worse. And so she actually gave her list of her favorite albums, best to worst. And she's also a Tommy and JY person. I'm just more of just a Tommy person. She's a Tommy and JY person. So it's and fan. So she really likes that. And she actually properly dislikes a lot of Dennis's music, apparently. Whereas I don't think almost any of Dennis's music, if any. I think that some, actually no, there are some I definitely don't like. I mean, Aku Aku is one I obviously don't like. I don't see how it should even exist, realistically. I'm not gonna lie. But I want to show you actually her list, if I can, really quickly, just so that you can see in comparison just the difference in subjectivity and opinion, which is therefore why you should absolutely not allow somebody else's opinions and reviews to form your opinions and your boundaries of where you're not gonna listen to something at will. Homewrecker, yeah. See, she's probably predominantly, I would say, a JY fan, even over Tommy. But this is her list. This is the reason why I was wanting to show you guys this. This is her official list. She does include one extra, which is Big Bang Theory, because that's what most fans do. They include Big Bang Theory. I guess because the fact it is them singing it and actually really performing it in their studio. So she has, obviously, The Mission first, and she has Pieces of 8 second, which is, I just realized, she has Pieces of 8 second. I have it as 13. Wow, okay. She has Styx 1 as 3. I have it as 14, I believe? Brave New World 4. Crystal Ball 5. Paradise Theater is 6. I can't remember where I had that. That was pretty far down. Cornerstone at 7, which is actually kind of where we meet, because I have Cornerstone at 5. Paradise Theater actually I had at 6. Never mind. So we both have Paradise Theater at 6. This is really interesting to look at and compare. The Grand Illusion at 8. I have that at 4. Equinox at 9. Didn't I have that at 9? Yeah, I did. We literally both have Equinox at 9 as well. Wow, okay. I'm just gonna make this even smaller now. Man of Miracles at 10. I have Man of Miracles. I like how I'm looking at my filming screen, the OBS screen, rather than the actual thing. I have that as 12. So it's like the bottom of our lists are actually exactly where we kind of meet, other than CYCLORAMA, obviously, I have at 7. Well, I guess it's not too far apart, but yeah. Kilroy here, she has a bleh. English is tough. Kilbro is here, she has at 13, I believe it was. I have it at 11. So technically 12, so we're pretty close on that. Edge Essentially has 14, I have it at 15. So the worst. Serpent is Rising, she has 15. I have that at, I think that was 10, right? Yeah. Styx 2 at technically 15, so she technically has that at 14, then the worst one she has is Styx 2, which I have as 8. So out of 15. So I find this really interesting to be able to look at this and see these direct comparisons. You can see how subjectivity plays such an imperative, important, and massive part in people's opinions and things on literally anything and everything. Like, look at this. Like, the comparison here, there's certain things that I have that are sensible, like they're comparable to what Deborah has here. And then there's other ones that are like pretty damn far apart. I mean, like, I just find that super interesting. I find it I'm finding it way more interesting than I originally actually thought it would. So this is my list of the 6 albums from best, Brave New World, to worst, Edge of the Century. Yeah, I hope you guys got the gist. I hope you enjoyed, and I hope you guys, if you have not given each of these albums a chance, and let alone all of Styx music a chance, their entire anthology, their library, I highly recommend you do. You're really, really, really missing out, and you're really limiting yourself on what I think is the best fucking band that has ever existed and will ever exist. And there's still bands that I fucking am passionate about, like Boston, which are fucking amazing and elite. You know, others are you know, REO Speedwagon for me in Kansas. And then you have those, especially when you're talking about classic rock. And then you have those that are obsessed with Queen, which I'm not obsessed with Queen. I do like Queen, but I don't listen to it that frequently because I'm not like a diehard of it at all. Whereas others are fanatical about it. They think they're the best rock band ever. You know, it's just like, again, subjectivity, but I highly recommend you listen to this. It's fucking phenomenal. Please do. Feel free to let me know what your ranking would be. after you have, or if you already have. I think that would be a lot of fun. And especially considering I think this would be fun for a lot of other people, especially people that grew up with this shit, whereas I'm going on 27 in January. So, like, you know, you have a millennial's point of view, albeit one that does not fit with most millennials, but fits with people that are like 40 to like 60, by far the best, and gets along with them the best by default, which I think kind of is self-explanatory, I suppose, but that's what we're talking about. But yeah, you know, get a millennial or young person's point of view on the rankings of these albums and which ones they think are the best. I hope you enjoyed. I hope you get the gist. And this is probably way longer than I intended it to be, even if I edited heavily. But you know, it happens. So when you're passionate about something, it's gonna happen. And on top of it, when you're a rambling type like myself. With that said, I hope you enjoyed it, got the gist of it, learned something, I don't know. Oh, let me know especially what you think about these albums down below. And I'll see you guys and gals, boys and girls, haters, mental dish, whatever the next video live stream may be. Stay safe, stay fluffy, have a great day, wherever you are, and make sure to kick life's ass, make it your bitch, instead of you being its bitch all the time like it normally is. I'll see you later, goodbye.